Sky Howdy, and welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And this time, Rich Soule is here again.
So that I survived that. The guy that Terry that had the FLIR, we gave him some crap. But obviously he was very afraid, and for good reason. He was bluff charged, and so you can't blame him for that. And we all made it out of there okay, and obviously I'm still alive. So it was just one of those creepy experiences that you just got to live through and go through till the next time. Another one that I have, this Iowa, there was quite a few. I spent a lot of time going to Iowa, so I had quite a few experiences. I'll share a real short one, a last one from Iowa in the Solarian escarpments there, when we were doing this was just a private expedition. We had been out during the day, you go out and you look for tree structures and stuff and any signs of Bigfoot. Well, I had noticed when we drove by this farm that there was some kittens and stuff at this farm. You drive by and you see something that catches your eye. I noticed there was some kittens in this farmyard, so I was like, oh, cool. We drove back to our camp, and it was late at night when we had been out and done some night ops, and we came back, and the storm came in, and it was probably 4:30 in the morning, 5 a.m. I was in my tent sleeping, and you hear this storm, just wicked wind howling, just windy. I had upgraded my tent and got a Kodiak canvas tent, so it was a real nice heavy duty tent. Well, it has
good
awning.
Timing there at least.
Yeah, it has an awning on it. So I'm laying there. All of a sudden, I hear this meow sound, a meow of a kitten. And, you hear a storm. I'm in this really deep, dark woods in this park, and I hear a kitten sound. And I'm like, what the hell? So I unzip my zipper. I get up out of my bed, get it, and go out, open it up. And I look outside, and it's pitch black. It's just howling wind, torrential rain and stuff. And I can't see a kitten anywhere. I figured it would just be underneath my awning. It was hiding underneath my awning because it was afraid. It's a kitten. Somebody should respond to this. So I did. Nothing there. I look out, just this windy, dark, ugly night, and all of a sudden I get this feeling that might not be a kitten. And I slowly zip my tent back and go to bed with just this very kind of inquisitive feeling in myself of fear, and also what the hell was that? Something got me to peek. Something provoked me to peek outside my tent, and there was no kitten there. There was nothing there but a really nasty weather. So that was odd. The next night, fast forward, about the same time of night, it's about 5 a.m., we had done went out. We were going through these other parks. We had our tent in this particular park. I can't mention it, but we were in other of these parks in this Solarian escarpment that were miles and miles away that we had done. We're doing night hikes in and stuff. So we weren't even in this area until we came back like 4 or 5 in the morning. Well, I came back, got into my tent, and probably was asleep an hour, and I start hearing this kind of owl sound behind my tent. And then it just keeps, the smell of urine then just gets overwhelming. It's like the smell of urine is in the air, just overwhelming smell of urine. And it wakes me up. I start coughing literally. And I have a recorder, so I have this recorded. And I try to clear my throat. You can hear me kind of clear my throat. Well, my recorder that I had there died just right before this. But all of a sudden, this sound of, all I can compare it to is like a mountain lion in heat with a lady kind of screaming all at the same time. Just bizarre sound. Blood curdling. I mean, literally hairs on my arms standing up. I literally just am struck with fear. just shakes me out of my bed. I mean, it was loud. It was right next to my tent. I could not believe it. And it's I got up and it was still dark out, so I didn't do anything, but it was loud and it was just this crazy, like something was in heat almost. That's all I can say. I don't know if you've ever heard a cat in heat,
yeah,
kind of noise they make, but this would be like 100 times that. I mean, just like overwhelming noise. And I couldn't believe it. So then in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, this is some taunting from last night. It was a kitten, and tonight Mom is here, and Mom is in heat, or if this is a female Bigfoot, she is a young one or something, and she's messing with me. But it was just bizarre. I mean, it was very bizarre. I couldn't hardly process it. But what happened is that next morning, there was a researcher from Missouri, Carter Bouchard, who is a BFRO researcher. He had a Mercedes there, and there was a urine spot on his vehicle that got sprayed. My tent had this urine area, so we weren't for sure what had happened. I don't believe it was a mountain lion or a bobcat, because it was just way too loud. But whatever it was, it literally seemed like the night before it was testing me with the meow sound, and then the following night it was a full-blown female in heat sound, which was just frightening. It was absolutely frightening. So that was one of those things where it's a head scratcher, and you're like, what the hell? But the urine that was there was obviously happened, and this was in an area that I was camped right above a cave. And this is how I learned a lot of my research about these cave systems. The first expedition I was on was also had this underground aquifer. So this fresh water and these cave systems started making a lot of sense to me early on. And I was literally on top of a sinkhole, was probably 100 yards from my tent. And I think they were coming in and out of the sinkhole from this cave system. I really think that they were using the sinkhole as an entrance to this cave system. And so I think I was literally sitting right on top of a Sasquatch nest or home there.
Oh, God.
So that was pretty crazy. That was kind of a wild experience. So I'll fast forward to another one that I'd had in the Jemez Mountains of New Mexico. This would have been 2013. And this was, you talk about the red-haired giants and all this sort of thing, your giants that you talk about. Well, this was the actual home to the red-haired giants that you hear about in the Lovelock Cave and all that. This would have been the same kind of mountain range they would have been in. And this was up about 9,500 feet up in the Jemez Mountains, right outside of Los Alamos in the Valles Caldera. And talk about a spooky area. You got, when we drove into Los Alamos, it's literally a military base. And so they ask you if you have guns and all that. And you're literally at Checkpoint Charlie I'd never seen a community that was literally a military base. And that town of Los Alamos, that's what it is. They do not let you in that town. The names of the roads in that town are Bikini Atoll and stuff like that. Oppenheimer Road, Bikini Atoll Road. Very, just a strange. I'm sure people are nice there. Nothing against them, but just outsider coming into this, it's a strange experience. Of course, there's all kinds of things about Los Alamos itself, the actual lab, what's going on there, and the underground bases, and New Mexico just in general as a UFO hotbed. But this is a strange. As we got up into this mountain we were going into, which was above the Valles Caldera, there was cattle, all kinds of cattle, and what they do is they let their cattle up into the mountains because the desert, it's that much of a desert out there in during the summer and stuff. So they just let their cattle do free range up in the mountains. So that's strange. You'll be up there and hear mooing echoing around in the mountain range when you're up there. So you had to kind of adjust your ears to all that. But we get up in there, and we have a campsite that kind of overlooks, about 9,500 feet, overlooks the valley there. Beautiful campsite. Well, we had some experience that first night. We had a group go out, and they had encountered red eye glow, and they had been under a tree, and they had kind of came all around them at this tree. And that was right near where I had my camp at. And we were kind of spread out. We had a base camp, and then I was in the second camp, which was farther out into away from everything. And that night, about I think it was probably around 3 or 4 a.m. We'd just gotten in for the night. A group that was camping within their camper, a lady and her son had a camper slap. It had Bigfoot across the road and slapped their camper, and so they radioed that something just hit their camper, and it was hard enough that it knocked Brandon, the boy, out of his actual bed.
Oh,
so it was a good hard slap. I was not aware of this at the time, but the following morning I heard about this. But there was another a guy and a girl who were in a little, very tiny tent. It was their first expedition. They didn't have a radio. It's kind of a rookie mistake. You should always have a radio to radio for help. They didn't have a radio, and they were absolutely terrified. Two Bigfoot, I believe they were adolescent ones, had came by, and they had urinated and defecated around their tent. And these two people were just absolutely terrified. They could not, they slept in their car the rest of the expedition, but they didn't have a radio to radio anybody. So they didn't know, they just took it, literally just took this terrifying experience of being harassed by these juveniles. And my tent was not that far away. If they had radioed, well, I was probably 100 yards from them, but, if they had radioed at that time, that night, when I had gone to there, I tried to read some reports about what's going on in these areas. One of them was a report of a camper who had a Bigfoot reach their hand in their tent, unzip their tent, reach their hand in, and it was a big hairy arm reaching around in their tent. So that was in my, a vivid picture in my mind as I was sleeping that night. Well, about 4 in the morning, I hear something. I have next to my tent is like these evergreen bushes, and I could hear something large like get onto this evergreen bush, like step on into it, and all of a sudden come down really low next to where my bed was on one, my cot was on one far end, right next to this side of the tent. So whatever it was coming on in and getting real cozy next to the side of my tent where I was laying there. So I was, in the mountains you get kind of tired, you had a long day. I just laid there to listen to what was happening, but I had like a machete corn knife that I had underneath my, connected next to my bed. And so I just thought, I've got that if I need it, if something goes terribly wrong. So I sit there and listen, and whatever it is huge. And I thought, I've had deer come up close to me in the past when there's other predators out there. They'll come in kind of close because they'd rather be around us than whatever's out there after them. So I got to thinking, could this be a deer? No, it sounded much bigger than a deer. And then I got to thinking, would a cow be getting up in an evergreen bush like this and laying down and getting close? That doesn't make any sense. If it was a cow, I would, would think I would notice the difference, the hooves, or at least how it was moving. This sounded like it was really trying to be stealthy, but yet it was pretty big that it couldn't. And it kept trying to get closer and closer, like inching closer and closer to where I was laying there. Very bizarre. So I start kind of thinking to myself, and I'm like, oh, I think I got a Bigfoot outside my tent. I think he's checking me out. And so I think in my mind that I've got this knife, and then I put an image in my head that if you poke your hand in my tent, I'm going to cut your hand off. That's what I'm putting into my head. I got this knife. I literally put this image in my head that I'm going to do that. Well, before long, I just dozed off to sleep. And why would somebody fall asleep when you think you got a Bigfoot right outside your tent? That totally defies logic of doing that. But I literally fell asleep. I wake up 2 or 3 hours later, just as the sun's coming up, and my arm, I must have slept on it wrong, but it's bizarre because the last thing I remember is I was going to cut this Bigfoot's hand off or arm off if it reached in my tent. Well, that morning I woke up, I can't feel my arm. I have to literally pick it up and rub it and massage it to bring it back to life because I slept on it wrong or something. But very odd, whether it's a coincidence or not, or whether I was just getting a strange lesson from the Bigfoot, I don't know. But that was a very strange experience to happen, and it's one of those things that just stick with my mind is that, you never know what's going to happen when you're out there. But to fall asleep when you got one right next to your tent, Lord only knows what happened that night, and maybe I don't want to know, but there was one and the people that were in the tent that morning at campfire, then I found out that they got all kinds of stuff happen to them. So I was not, terrified by any means, but that was just a weird experience to have that happen. So you just never know. You go on these expeditions and you try to keep an open mind, but there are things happen. I've heard of people, falling asleep or being put to sleep and that sort of stuff. So I don't know why I would have fell asleep with a Bigfoot outside my tent. Knowing what I know now, there's no way now I would normally do that or would have ever done that.
Well, I've done equally bizarre things too, like when we were up in Coloma and I had that one come up and shake my tent and then run past the SUV and slap it on his way out after he set up the car alarm. We sat in the SUV and talked for about an hour and a half or so, and then I went back to the tent and I actually went back to sleep again, which amazed researcher X, but I was tired, so I figured after the loud noise from the car alarm, he probably wasn't coming back the same night anyway, so I could probably get some more sleep.
Yeah, and they will do that. We had that happen last year. We had one in camp that tried to be real stealth, and it touched the vehicle and set off the car alarm, and we were able to take pictures. That was the one that had like Twinkie size fingers. We could see its handprint on the car. And it was a good 11 or 12 foot tall alpha male, but his hand was so big he had crouched down to hide himself, and he set off the car alarm. And be cool.
Do you have the picture of the handprint?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'll send that along. We can show everybody that too. And that's something that I've heard a bunch of times. Yeah, the Twinkie-sized fingers. God, that's just creepy.
Yeah, huge fat finger. I mean, just massive hand. I'll send you pictures of that. That was a really good one. And that was the one that came up. I was in a remote camp up in, this was on the Omaha Res. I was up in, we were doing a remote camp by some of these, there was an arch and some other structures that we were camping next to. And that's kind of the evolution, I guess, of my Bigfooting is that, I would go on expeditions and learn things and then take them to the next level. And, at this point in time, I can get into an area where I know there are structures and camp there. And, 99% of the time you're going to have some high level of activity with, next to these structures. So we were in that, we call it Camp Hard Knocks, and they had, I was up by myself for a while. We had 3 different tents up there, a group of people, and we were kind of spread out a little bit. But my radio started doing some crackling. This was about 4 a.m. We'd been up there, and we were all calling it a night. There'd been a storm kind of come through. It was August of last year, and the crackling started happening on my radio. I had a walkie-talkie, and if you've ever been around, sometimes weird electronic stuff happens when Bigfoot's in the area, and so that really kind of freaked me out. And then I started having this pushing part of my tent where I had a hanging a recorder hanging. That started swaying back and forth, and then my tent got pushed in towards me. And so I took my hat out and slapped at that. And there was clearly the Bigfoot were coming around and checking me out. as I was sitting there, later Barry came up and one grabbed my leg. I had things. It was just one of those 3 or 4 man tent, pretty small tent, and it has a rain fly on it. And on one end of it, it had a little zip like pocket, and I had my phone in that zip pocket. And all of a sudden, I feel that zip pocket get bent in and touch my knee, and something touched my knee. So it was pushing in. I think there was more than one of them, but they were pushing in. And you know, you got to figure a great ape. From what I understand, they're very tactile, and they like, if they want to look, they'll look at something, they'll want to see it and feel it. And so I was kind of the, you know, touch and feel thing experience for them there that night, and that the young ones must have been coming down and checking me out. And we had just all kinds of stuff going on around my tent. Finally, I think it was 4:30 or so, we had all these wood knocks, and I think I had talked to you about this story before, but we had the alpha male did wood knocks all around me. I don't know if you've ever heard those, so maybe I'll send that to you so you can play it, because that's really amazing footage or amazing audio recording of wood knocks. On each corner of where we were there, like it went all the way around us, it knocked. And these sounded like gunshots. This is how loud they were. It was just unbelievable. It was like somebody just fired off a 12-gauge shotgun or something. It was crazy.
No, you know, the chick, it wasn't like I was gonna marry her, but it's just bad.
Oh, you hear him, bro?
Yeah.
He's all right now. You hear him?
That's a wind, isn't it?
No. He's doing it. He's hollering.
He's coming up here, you think?
Hear him?
Huh?
Hear him?
Yeah.
Sounds like an owl.
How far away is he?
He's north of us. He's down in that valley. Hear him? Hear that?
I got terrible hearing, bro.
Yeah, he's making noise, bro. Come too far, bro. Fucking let an opportunity miss, bro.
What's that?
I said, you've come too far, bro, to miss the opportunity here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like an owl, bro. That's him.
Which one is this?
Hmm? North of us, bro. This way.
That way?
Mm-hmm. Up towards our head. Down in that valley.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I figured it was gonna be there. I think it's like 4:30 or something right now.
Yeah. Hear that? Hey, bro.
Yeah.
He's good, man. He's shotgun. He's bold, man. He's the white one they saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll just walk up here, man. And even if we open the tent and just look, he'll just fucking keep coming, bro. So be ready for that, bro. Get your fucking video out. You know what I mean, bro?
I don't have no. Well, I got my phone, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll be ready.
I
We're
think,
gonna stake out and shit.
yeah. I'm not shitting, bro. He'll like walk below the.
Hey, what?
He'll walk below the valley here. You know, he might not come 10 feet from the tent, but he'll stay down here as long as he can see us. And I think he's coming.
Somebody's sawing some logs next door.
Yeah.
They're out here. They're out down in the timber somewhere. And you're like, there's, what up? Ooh, is that a wood duck?
Fucking rights, bro. That was a fucking loud wood knot, bro.
That was a big boy.
Yeah.
I think I definitely recorded that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking nuts, man. They definitely don't like us in here, bro.
No.
How's that, bro?
That was a good knock. That was solid.
That was fucking loud, bro.
Where was that at? Kind of over by our cars?
No, it's down north of us.
Still north down in there.
Yeah,
You think he came through then?
No, he's not sure if he wants to come through. He's not feeling this. Like, what the fuck is that? You know?
I think having 3/10 of a dog probably is a little too much. But
Yeah.
ooh.
Hear that, bro? That was pretty cool. I was coming back, huh?
Yeah, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Because I was fucking wide awake. I mean, I could tell these guys were done, but I was just like, shit, I'm just going to be riding it out here.
Holy fuck. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
You guys hearing that?
I heard it.
That's like the third one now. He's pissed.
Nice.
Boo, give it the boo.
We had one walking around our tent a while back.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She said we had one walking around the tent.
Yeah. I heard some shit going on. My hearing's terrible, Bo. I can't hear or see with this shit, but I'm a hell of a squatcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard some shit. I think they poked my tent earlier because this whole thing was
Oh, shit.
like fucking 4th of July up in here. That was that's like I've been all around us now, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know what, bro? We better fucking get up, because I've never seen him do that, bro.
Should we get some lights on?
Yeah. Hey. Who is that, Tammy?
Yeah.
You know what? I've never heard him be that aggressive, so you guys... I would actually wake up, because that's not normal right now.
Okay.
And it caught our attention. And Barry and I are just sat and listened, and he originally could hear him coming. He was making an owl sound coming down from the canyon and working his way back up. But I think what happened was we had the young ones, we were camping in their kind of their home there, and the young ones were coming in and checking us out. And when the alpha male came back home, he was pissed off at them for coming in and touching us and trying to grab in our tent. And then he was also mad at the fact that we were there. So he did these wood knocks all around us. We get out of the tent and we shine our, at the fourth one that happened, which was totally all around us. Barry and I are like, we got to get up and do something because we're, afraid they're going to push a tree over on us or something.
Yeah, it's no kidding. They're getting serious about get out of here.
Yeah, it was literally a knock all around, all four corners around my tent. And so we get out and shine a flashlight, and then we think, everything calmed down. And we go to, it was about 5 a.m, and we talk about what happened. We decide, there's only about an hour left of sunlight. We're going to go lay down. So we go back in. Well, Barry and I are just dead tired, so we start snoring right away. Well, we had some ladies that were right next to us a little bit of ways, and one of them, Tammy, said that every time we snored that they would throw a rock at our tent. So,
I wonder if you could trick them that way, make a recording of you snoring, and then just play that in your tent and actually sit there and listen and see if what they're going to do.
You might be able to. I mean, they're pretty smart. They're on to about everything you do. But before we even laid down, Barry and I were talking, and he didn't even say anything to me at this time. But we say, yeah, I'm Bush and I'm going to go to bed. So I go to turn around to lay down, and Barry said the next day I talked to him. He goes, bro, when you laid down, you went to turn around and lay down. There was a Bigfoot was looking, had pulled the rainfly was looking right at you. I said, bro, why did you say something at that time? He goes, well, he wasn't hurting anything. So he goes, and I didn't want to, startle it either. So I just looked at it. It closed the rainfly right when you turned around, but it was looking at you.
Oh, God.
So had very close encounters, been touched by them. That was one that was a great experience because I think at least from my own impression, I learned some of their behavior, having them come and the young ones kind of physically touch, that they're very tactile kind of learning. They're really wanting to kind of learn about us. What are you guys doing here? What's going on? And they weren't afraid. I wasn't the type of person putting off negative energy or anything. I was tired, but I was just kind of open to it. I wasn't really, terrified, I guess you can say, because I'd been in the woods with them a lot. But
I think it's better that you don't do that, especially around the juveniles. If they don't have common sense. If you get scared around the juveniles and they sense or realize that you're scared, they'll have fun with it. And they'll really make you miserably terrified because it's funny. Yes.
And I learned that like when I was up in the Jimez Mountains that time with those two the husband and wife that were in a little tent, but they were terrified. So they feed off your fear. If you're afraid and show that fear to them, certainly the juveniles are going to take advantage of that. So you're exactly 100%.
Yeah, to me it's the same sort of thing as like juvenile humans playing pranks. Oh, let's go put the bag of dog poop on the porch and set it on fire and ring the doorbell, and then go run and watch what happens. He, oh, that was hilarious. We got a great reaction. Let's do it again. Let's amp it up. And it seems like that's the way the juveniles are. They haven't got the wisdom and circumspection of the adults to stay the hell away from humans and don't mess with them. And Big Daddy Alpha isn't around, so he doesn't know we're breaking the rules. Let's go screw with the humans. And you wonder how much of the, them messing around with campsites and stuff is actually that. It's the juvies without enough common sense screwing around with people.
Yeah, I'm positive that. I'm absolutely positive just from my own experience. And then that when that alpha male came, it's like Dad came home, and when he hit those trees, because these literally the juveniles were coming down out of the trees. They had snuck into us by coming through the treetops. That's how they got. And then they came down right from the trees down right into our camp. So when he started hitting them trees, I'm sure they got back up into the trees.
They got the message right away. Oh crap, Dad's back. He busted us. He knows we're over here. We're in trouble.
And he went around and he hit every it was like you'll hear this. I'll send it to you. It's unbelievable how loud it is. But he does it all around our entire camp. So he was clearly setting boundaries, like you guys stay out, not get very pissed off at you, whatever. And he sent a very strong message to us also. And this was the same guy who had those Twinkie-sized fingers who was in.
Jesus.
So he was a good 11 to 12 feet tall. And when you hear these wood knocks, you expect it to be every bit as big, as loud as these wood knocks are. It is just unbelievable how loud they are. They're loud as
Some of them sound like something's actually bashing a full tree against another tree. They're so damn loud.
Yeah. I had another brief experience I had when I was in Iowa, when I had some, I was by myself, and the group that I was with, we had lit these, they're phosphorus kind of glow. They flash.
Right.
From emergencies, these phosphorus flashing, really hot phosphorus flashing. We lit one of those in this little park canyon area. It was super dark, and that thing just lit everything up. I mean, it was super bright. It was like a UFO had landed in there. And the guys that I was with, 2 of them went out on a night hike then, so I stayed back just to see what would happen if anybody would come into our camp while they were gone. Well, sure enough, I walked over by, I'm standing there, and I walk over by the side of where our van is, and there's a little next to where the van was, and I could hear all of a sudden a rock coming through the trees, like hitting the branches as it's coming through the trees and land down in this creek right behind me. So I got the impression that was like a warning, like, you need to not be here, I'm not happy with you here. A little while later, so I go around the other side and walk, and then I hear a huge tree break. Like, I mean, it's just total silence there. I'm there by myself, feeling very vulnerable. And this tree break then on the other side, this huge cracking noise I recorded too, just goes off. And finally, it seemed like they were gone forever, and they were probably only gone for 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But when they came back, I was just like, thank God somebody's here, because you get out in the woods by yourself, and it's pitch black around. You start to feel very vulnerable, and you really and they know it, and you know it, and that's kind of one of those feelings that you have to try to fight through because you don't want to seem too scared or too freaked out. So I stood my ground. I just stood out in the open. That was one thing I think that, being able to just stay where I was. I didn't freak out and go get in the van and hide or something. I stood there, kind of looked around, kept my presence of where I was at. But that was pretty overwhelming. That was kind of one of those times that, you just got to question why have you done this?
Hey, did I choose the right career path here? This is kind of getting a little bit dangerous, huh?
Yeah, I've had, unfortunately, you think I'd learn by now, but I do ask myself that same question still at times. Why have I got myself into this? But another one that is good that I actually had I've had some visual sightings of them where they've thrown stuff at me, and I've seen them branches come down and then rocking back and forth behind the trees and that sort of thing. But this one, I'll tell the one that happened on Omaha Res where I had a visual of a red-haired one, and this was on, let's see, it must have been 2014, I think this happened. But we had done there was a house, an abandoned house in this timber near an alfalfa field. And it's kind of funny, they had done that fall, they were trying to do creative ways to raise money. And they had done a haunted house or a haunted forest in this area. And it's absolutely hilarious to hear this story told. But LV, one of the guys from Red Spotching, had put on a ape suit. And if you imagine like the Little Rascals or something like that, one of those old shows that the guy's in the ape suit and they're all chasing him around. Well, right. They had these little kids out there. They were doing this haunted forest, and LV was hiding behind a bush or something. And
just to let everybody know, he's not a little guy. He is like practically Sasquatch size. He's a big dude.
He is. He's a very big guy. And so he's in this ape suit, and he's behind the bush, and all of a sudden he turns around, and these kids are coming up this trail, and he turns around and looks, and there's this big red Bigfoot just up the trail from him, and it's pissed off at him. And so he goes and jumps out of the bush, and the kids come running to him, and this Bigfoot breaks a tree, like a sapling, and throws it towards them, all in the same, like, movement, like, tries to scare them to get out of there, and this tree lands. Elvie said he was so terrified he could not move. So he's like frozen in place, and then Dee comes up and manages to shake Elvie out of his fear, and they get the kids out of there. But when he tells the story, it to me, it's funny. I'm sure it was just terrifying, but to see Elvie in this ape suit, and I asked him, I said, would you ever do that again? And he said, no way would I ever put an ape suit on and go out in the woods.
Bigfoot didn't think that was very funny, apparently.
Oh, he was so pissed off he broke a tree in half and threw it at him.
Oh God!
But this happened in like the fall. It would have been during around Halloween. Well, I was there then that following. It must have been in the spring, and I was in the same timber where this house was. And so they're telling me, yeah, last fall, we had this guy here. He's not very happy. He's a mean one. He's upset with us, and so we decided we'd go confront him tonight since we got you here, and you could, we'll tell him that, he needs to knock it off and shouldn't do that sort of thing. And I'm like, what? We're going to confront him? So we go in there, and as soon as we park, I see right away we're along this alfalfa field along this timber, and as soon as we pull in with our pickup and park, I see at just the very end of the headlights this red matted hair. I mean, I'm talking hair that is like probably 8 inches long and just matted, just ratty matted hair. And it stood up and turned, so I could see the side of it, and the leg and part of the upper body as it turns into the timber. And I know right away, that's a Bigfoot. And Barry's sitting behind me, and I'm like, did you see that? And he goes, yeah, that's him. That's him. He's here. And I was like, oh, hell. So, what do? Let's go in after him.
That's the wise thing to do. Hey, look, a giant furry monster. Let's go in after him.
The one who breaks trees and throws at people. Yeah.
Yeah, he's friendly. Let's go say hi.
And everything I know about the red-haired ones now is not good. They're not necessarily the best ones to be interacting with. And this guy apparently is very wild because he doesn't take care of his hair is so matted and ratty. I mean, it was just like, this is really a frightening looking Bigfoot. I mean, this would not be a good encounter. So we go up in there and we start to walk around. There's a huge structure in there, and it's literally a couple trees that are pushed over. And so we go by that one, and Barry is like, let's see if we can get him to interact with us. Why don't you go and walk back about 15 yards in where or about 30 yards into the timber where there's a tree, and take a flashlight and say peekaboo, and put your head and poke it around the tree and say peekaboo, and see if we can get an interaction. So against our better judgment, talk about needing some cojones to pull this off. I'm just thinking, all right, this is unconventional, but maybe.
Well, who knows? Perhaps their methodology has merit. Let's try.
Yeah. Let's really see where this will lead. What's going to happen? So, against my better judgment, I go and walk down this trail. It's pitch dark, and I poke my head around a tree, and it just, in complete trepidation, say peekaboo, and we were singing child, like, I can't remember, carols, like songs, childhood songs, just to try to get kind of a light mood, try to lighten it up, I guess. But in all retrospect, I'm sure we were pissing this guy off. But we did, each one of us do that. I managed to pull that off. As I'm walking back, I fall into a hole, which is a big round hole, which I think now later he probably slept in that hole, so I probably damn near fell on top of him. But anyway, it was one of these holes kind of dug out. I fell down in that and get out of it and get back to where the group is. We're standing there. We all take turns doing that. then we're standing there, which was probably his living room because it was these trees that were torn down and like put together, and there was just an open space. So we're standing in the middle of this, talking to each other, and all of a sudden, both of these, now mind you, these are huge trees that are pushed together and kind of matted. They're kind of woven together at the over top of each other. Yeah.
Playing peekaboo with them and singing songs.
Yeah, playing, and just, I guess when you look back, we were just being a pain in the ass. But anyway, this whole tree, both trees start shaking, just tremendous, just huge shaking of these trees. And we're all like, oh my God, did you do that? No, did you do that? Well, there's no way any of us could have moved these trees in that fashion. So we decide at that point, we're like, oh hell, we got to get out of here. So it's the tree stops shaking. We get out from underneath of it and go to walk out of there and get back to our car, and we're like, catch our breath, and we're like, what in the hell just happened? But obviously we had worn out our welcome. And he shook the hell out of these big trees that literally moved them all around us. And we're just, again, I'm thankful to be alive. The good Lord must be looking after me, or I'm so naive. But in that situation, we definitely pushed the limit. But that was the one time that I got a pretty good look at him. I didn't see his face, but that red-haired one, that was one that'll always stick out in my mind, because I think he's really very aggressive and very much wilder than some of the other ones I've encountered. And I'm just thankful I didn't get my head popped off or something.
No kidding. Or get a tree thrown on you or something. That can hurt bad, too, according to people I know that have been hit by small ones. Doesn't feel very good.
That's so that was quite an experience. That one was up there with being taking some real big cojones to hold our ground there. And
I think they respect that to a certain extent, but, it's like if you scream and run like little girls, that could trigger a chase response, so it's better to just hold your ground and back off slow. And, not act like you're totally freaked out.
I agree. I think they do respect. They can tell if you're afraid. They know exactly how you're feeling when you're out there. So if you don't conduct yourself in a way that is going to be respectful, or at least in a way that shows fear or whatever, they'll definitely play on that. And I'm all about showing respect now. This was a time period where I was still trying to elicit responses from them, and we don't really need to do all that anymore. We know exactly how to get in an area and have an interaction with them and try to just talk to them rather than to create these gimmicks and stuff. I mean, I went on expeditions. We played whale recordings. We've done all kinds of stuff in the past. And
well, from what I hear, if you want to get a negative reaction, just play some Led Zeppelin. Apparently, they don't like that one very much.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the voice or what, but there's something about Led Zeppelin. Apparently, they don't care for that very much.
Perhaps it's the back masking or backward.
That could be it. It's the secret masking of Bigfoot is fake. Bigfoot is fake. They pick up on that. It pisses them off. One good point that you just mentioned that I should stress again. I've heard this over and over and over again. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to attribute it to. But it does seem like the ones with the red hair are way more aggressive, and that's even in some of the native legends. Stay the hell away from those ones.
Yeah, exactly. And the ones that we had up in New Mexico, they were very aggressive up there. And the one that I saw here on the res, that particular one, he was definitely very aggressive, much more than other ones. And, they come in different colors, they can be, we've seen some that were black in color and even have some white, and some that were grayish, and even some that were black and brown, and variations of color of Bigfoot. But the red ones in particular, this red hair, orangish colored hair, which I think is that sub-Saharan African, that would be the one that Zana was actually. She was considered red hair. So I think that's a very ancient, one of the ancient origins of the Bigfoot we have today. So, but that red hair is very much the wilder cousin for sure. That's the wild one. So that was a great experience for me. And then I want to talk about the other experience that I had recently when I was on
let's get to that bluff charge coming up out of the river thing. That sounds pretty friggin' scary, brother.
Yeah, and I will send you. I have the some FLIR pictures of the river that I think looks like there's some wake in there. What I'll kind of build up what had happened. This was in May on an expedition we were doing on the Omaha Res, and typically we usually go back in the timber there. They have all of these bluffs and low hills, and they've got a ton of timber all around there. And so typically we go back in there. But I wanted to specifically, we've had reports of sightings, and years ago, back in December of 2012, I had recorded coyotes and stuff, and I'd camped down on this Indian cave area that had, that I thought I heard something swimming out in the water. So it always fascinated me. They've always been sighting. There's been sightings all around of them swimming in the water. So I wanted to go down by the river and just see if we could go check something out, see if we could get anything, capture anything, or just what kind of experience is going on there. So Barry had an area that we wanted to go in and check, and so we drove quite a ways to get into it. And when we got there, it was along a cornfield, and then there was it was almost kind of an inlet, like an oxbow. It was connected to the river, but yet it was kind of a little inlet area that was very still. It was about 4 a.m, and there was no wind or anything, very quiet. We got out of my Jeep, and the first thing we noticed when we looked at the timber line, which is away from us, about 200 yards away from the river, Barry saw something move in between. He thought it swung in between one of the trees and moved over to another tree. And so I start shooting FLIR of that. And I'll send you this FLIR footage. It's weird because as I'm shooting footage of it, I have one of those flashes again. It's like a light flash. And we talked about it in the one that...
Yeah, we had that in the previous episode where you had that light flash that you caught on video.
Yes, so I'll send this to you because it's a similar kind of thing. And I've never, I shoot a lot of FLIR, and I never had this happen. I had it happen with that Dr. Meldrum one, and now it happened in May with this. And so I'll send that along. You could play that for the people too. It was weird. Barry saw something moving in the tree, swinging back and forth in there, and then I shoot about a 35-second video of this tree line, and then about 10 seconds into it, you get this huge flash of light again. So, and it's just like a disruption or a distortion almost. It's just very strange. There's some sort of interference that it's not a bug, it's nothing like that. There's something clearly interferes with it's a light flash. So that's pretty weird. So you can play that. And then right where I'm standing when I shoot that video, we go about 20 yards, and then there's the Missouri River. And it's just like an inlet area. They call it cable crossing, I think. So there must have been cables or something that came through there.
Right.
We get ready to go down in there, and it's about just probably 3 or 4 steps, and then you're down into a ledge that leads right next to the water. Well, as we're getting ready to go down in between this very bushy, there's just a little kind of opening where you can get through there to get down in there. Barry asked to use my flashlight, so I give him my flashlight so he can see to get down in there. As soon as we go stepping in there, we hear a large splash off to our left, like something huge just jumped in the water. And then we step down in a little farther and go, "Do you hear that?" Yeah. We step a little bit farther, and we're right down on the landing there, and another splash right away you can hear. So there was 2 big splashes. Something jumped in the water. And immediately I think to myself, I think we just scared a couple Bigfoot and they jumped in the water. I can't believe this. And Barry's thinking the same thing. It was just such a huge splash. It was like 2 people just dived into the water, but there was a huge sound, a splash.
Right.
Now, mind you, I have microphones that I have on that are omnidirectional, and I always carry this stuff. I have it running. I had it running. I never turn it off. I usually, once I go out, I turn it on and just keep it running, because I don't want to miss anything. Well, I'll be damned if I didn't make a rookie mistake. When I was setting up my FLIR camera to get out of the vehicle, I had it in my lap and I had the box there. That box, I normally have it up in a pocket that is sitting up in my chest area, but this was just a pullover sweatshirt and it was sitting kind of in the hand pocket areas, and the damn button must have got pushed and my recorder was not working, so I did not have it. Normally I have these omnidirectional mics. They pick up everything. It'd be like a perfect sound. So we would have heard the 2 splashes of them diving in the water. So Barry and I I didn't capture any of this on audio, but I did shoot a few pictures, so at least you'll be able to show that. So Barry and I are standing there. We're like, what the hell? Something just jumped in. These things just jumped. 2 things just jumped in the water. And I'm looking, we're on this kind of ledge that just drops straight down. And so it must have been very deep there because I could hear something splashing around out there. And it's like it's something swimming, but it's like these very loud splashing sounds. So I take some pictures with my FLIR camera, and when you do look at the pictures that I'm going to send you, you will see what looks like a wake almost.
Right.
Mind you, there's absolutely there's no wind at this time. It's dead silent, but you will see a line of kind of a wake out in the water. And it was pitch black out there. So when I took these FLIR pictures, it was just, I was just kind of taking random pictures of where the noise was coming from. I would hear some splashing. I'd hear splashing out there, and so I aimed the camera out there and took pictures. So there's some anomalous kind of wake that's there and a dark figure that's in that water. So when you look at this picture, you make you decide for yourself what it is, but I believe was something, the Sasquatch was swimming out there, and there's at least 2 of them for sure. Well, Barry and I are staying. This whole interaction doesn't take a few minutes. We're there. They jump in the water. We're hearing the splashing. I'm looking around. I noticed that people have came here before because I can see a mason jar. It looked like was sitting there, and maybe a beer bottle or something. Like, people had been in this area before. Well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear this swooshing sound, like a wake swooshing sound, and a roar. And I can't even tell you how loud this was. But Barry and I have been in the bush. We've stood our ground. We've had things thrown at us. We've dealt with a lot of stuff. Both of us immediately take a step back and say to each other, let's get the hell out of here. But this roar came like it charged right. It was in the water. This was coming from the water. You could hear the wake of the water coming up towards us, and then a roar, and it literally was all around us, this roar. It was just immense. And I told Barry, right at Habit, I said, we just got bluff charged from the water. This is outrageous. We just got bluff charged. I have never, ever heard of anybody say, and maybe you have, of a Bigfoot bluff charging somebody from the water. So that to me was the first time I've ever had that, and it kills me that I didn't have my omnidirectional, because I have these really nice mics that just pick up everything.
Oh, God. Yeah, night, still night, and at that distance, it would have been an awesome recording.
Oh, just an overwhelming sound that we immediately backed up and got the hell out of there. And so we had disturbed a couple Bigfoot there. I'm not sure what they were doing, but obviously they were hanging out there, and maybe that was the entrance to their home there. I do believe they do some access some of their underground caves and lodges underwater. So that could be certainly whatever was going on there. That was their spot at 4 a.m, and they were having nothing of it that we were there. We really pissed and the amount of noise, the wake, and the amount of stuff moving out there. It had to be huge to be able to swim in that water like that. Just unbelievable. So I did at least catch some of that, what I think is a wake out in the water, and so your viewers or your listeners can see that. But I did not get that recording. It kills me that I didn't, because that to me is like a total rookie mistake for not checking my recorder when I got out of the vehicle. But anyway, the experience is with me, and the story is still there. It was an amazing time, and never had that happen before, and I've never heard anybody talk about that. But
I haven't either. This is the first for me. I've never heard anybody getting bluff charged from the water before.
Yeah, and that was at the time it was just overwhelming. And Barry, like I said, we both had very experienced out, and we've never had anything like that happen. And the immense power and sound that was, it had to have been huge. And so that just was mind blowing for me to have that. But would have loved to have that audio. God, if I could go back in time and get that now. But you just have to. It was a swooshing sound of the water, like this immense wake coming towards us, and within that water erupted a roar, like it was still almost submerged when it was letting that out. I can't hardly even explain the sound, how loud it was, but it was so loud it just engulfed the air all around us, and both of us just stepped back immediately. Mind-blowing experience, and so there you have it. That was one of my more scarier things. If a Bigfoot would have jumped out of the river all wet and hairy at that time and landed on that, it probably would have froze me up. I don't know if I could have moved if it would have done that. It probably would have freaked me out that badly. That noise was just immense. So if it would have jumped up on top of the landing there in front of us, I don't know if I would have been able to move or not. I mean, it was that sort of sound.
I'm assuming you're describing what's commonly referred to as the T-Rex roar.
Yeah, something like that. It was weird because it was like it was coming out from the water, though, too. I don't know if it had a head above the water, if it was still in the water. It was strange. It was a swooshing sound with just this roar. Yeah, could have been the T-Rex roar. It was absolutely so loud. It was all around us, and Barry and I immediately we got to get the hell out of here. I mean, it was a bluff charge. We were bluff charged from the water, and never heard anything.
Perfect place for him to do it, actually. I've been in the situation before where I've been at night, dead still, no wind, and there's like somebody on the other side of the lake. They're in the water and they're talking, and you can hear them talking, and they're a mile and a half away. So if you can imagine the sound amplification of that same circumstance, and something that can already be incredibly loud right at water level roaring. Oh, my God. Yeah, that would be really loud.
It was just unbelievable, and I only wish I could play that. Even if I recorded it, I don't think I could have. It would not have, you can record stuff, and you just can't capture the volume,
Right.
Even if you can record something like that, the immense energy and the moving of that water and the speed that this was approaching us.
And the way your rib cage and chest and body vibrate from the volume of the sound.
Yeah. That you just can't, even recording it, you can't hardly capture that. So maybe it's best to let people use their own imagination in this.
Yeah. If you've ever been to a Motorhead show and stood right in front of Lemmy's amp stack, that's kind of similar.
Yeah. We were literally blown back. I mean, we both just stepped back. I mean, it was as if we were blown back, and I mean, we were out of there. Both of us were like, I said right away, we just got bluff charged, and we're like, let's get out of here. Beautiful. So that was an amazing experience, and I do have some. People can see at least the water, what it looked like. It's not going to capture all that, but like I said, even if I had recorded it, I don't know that you can really capture something like that. It's just one of those things. Barry and I will always be able to say that, to have bluff charge. And I'll be curious if anybody else has had that experience, because I know a lot of people live in areas where they are around water more. So maybe there are people that had experiences like that, but that's the first time I've ever had a bluff charge from the water. So.
Yeah, I'll throw that out right now. If there's any viewers out there, listeners that have had a similar experience, get a hold of me. Let me know about it. And just for GP, you can always reach me at worldbigfootcentral@yahoo.com. Drop me a line. Let me know. If you want to be on the show and talk about it, that'd be cool. If you just want to tell me about it, that's cool too. And we got to wrap it up here, brother. But before we go, I want to give you a plug. Don't forget, you folks out there, that this gentleman has not one but two books on Bigfoot tree structures. And he also has his own website, Noxgigas, Noxgigas, where it's the archive of all of his research and recordings and all sorts of interesting stuff that he's been up to. And don't miss out on that. It's really cool. Go there. Go there, go there, go there. It's worth it. Check it out. You'll love it. Anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, that should do it for now. That sounds really good. I appreciate you having me on, Duke. And anytime, I'm more than just a phone call away. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Right on, brother. I always love having you on the show, and we can't talk about it now because it's top secret. But we do have another show planned in hopefully the near future here. That's going to be pretty amazing. So you guys are not going to want to miss that one.
Definitely.
Yeah. And, meanwhile, again, thanks for being on the show. I mean, that's one of the things I love about having friends like you that are researchers that are out there doing stuff all the time, because I can have you on the show more than once, and you've got stuff to talk about. You're finding out new stuff you do in your research. Things are happening, and, that's what's moving the ball down the field and making progress in the Bigfoot community, is having people like you out there. So my hat's off to you. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And I am sure that the vast majority of all the people out there that watch the shows and have been keeping track of the ones that you've been doing are equally happy to hear from you again, and looking forward to having yet another show with you here in the near future, because you always bring your A game to the table. Every time I have you on the show, it's always super interesting, and you always do a great job of presenting the information that you've got. So I love having you on the show, man. I'm always looking forward to having you back again.
Well, thanks again, Duke. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everybody, that concludes today's show. We look forward to more interesting shows in the future. We got a panel discussion coming up here that I'm planning at some point in the future here that you guys are really going to like, because it's going to be like the only time you've ever heard a crazy mountain man and a wily outlaw and fearless Navajo warrior all talking about Bigfoot on the same show. Guess who those people could be? I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. But until next time, everybody, make sure to be kind to each other. Always try and pay it forward. Safety first, last, and always. Don't slap Superman, and don't piss off Bigfoot. And whatever you do, God help you, do not hug the Wookiee. Take care, everyone. Bye.